Biggest story tonight as we speak about the Prime Minister's departure to Uzbekistan, where he will be meeting the Russian President Vladimir Putin. That's the picture of the Prime Minister leaving for Uzbekistan in what could be a very significant visit. And we are also hearing that the Prime Minister could have more than one bilateral. We have the details of that. We'll go across to Shravan as well. In fact, before the Prime Minister took off for the SCO summit, there was a statement that was issued, and the Prime Minister, just before he left, a picture that's come into our newsrooms. He also has said and hinted at possible bilaterals, not confirming names, but he of course has hinted that there could be more than one. Abhishek joining us on the phone line. Abhishek, okay, he's live with us. Abhishek, what are your expectations, Abhishek? Why is this summit significant?
Well, significant for one, Niranjan. This is happening first physical meeting after the COVID pandemic panned out. Xi Jinping traveling out of China for the first time. This is the first physical meeting taking place after the Europe war for these leaders, including Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Modi. This is the first meeting taking place where Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping would be under one roof after the Ladakh standoff. This is the first meeting after the economic crisis has really panned out in Sri Lanka, in Europe. This is the first meeting taking place after the inflation pandemic that we have seen panning across economies and the consequences that we have seen. So it's significant because of the fact that this is a meeting happening in the midst of so many crises that bilateral relationships have gone through, and in general the world has gone through. So obviously these leaders have to come together and discuss and find ways to come out.
But just interrupting you there.
I have sensed that...
Just interrupting you there because we're getting in some breaking news, Abhishek. Sorry to interrupt you there. Roger Federer has just announced his retirement of an era in tennis. Let's go across to the pictures coming in from the national capital as the Prime Minister departing for that big SCO summit. All eyes on Uzbekistan, where the Prime Minister will be participating at the SCO summit. That's him just waving to the cameras before he takes off. That's the one shot coming in. Abhishek is still with me. Abhishek, the Prime Minister is leaving. A lot of expectations also, Abhishek. Expectations because there will be, you can't avoid that eye contact, for example, with the Pakistan Prime Minister. So much has been spoken about a possible bilateral with Xi Jinping and with Putin. What, according to you, will be the big headline here?
Well, for one, Niranjan, if the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping happens, even that would be a big headline, because remember, both the sides as yet have not announced the meeting taking place. Remember, Prime Minister is a very short, less than 24-hour visit. He lands at around 9 p.m., flies out by 6 p.m. tomorrow. And the sketch that we have got about his engagements does not mention meeting Xi Jinping. Similarly, for the Chinese, they have not mentioned Xi Jinping meeting Prime Minister Modi. So if, despite being in the same room, if it just ends up being a tie-to-tie instead of, having a full bilateral, then that itself would be news, which means that despite the pullback that has happened from petroling point 15 at Gogra Hot Springs in Ladakh, Indians still believe that Chinese have to do more, and that's the message that would go from this meeting not taking place, or bilateral not taking place between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, despite the fact that they're meeting for the first time after the pandemic. And also, of course, if Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif, bumps into Prime Minister Modi, makes a pull aside, has a chat, that would also be a news. So while Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping not having a bilateral, only a pull aside would be bigger news than meeting. In the case of Pakistan, just a pull aside itself would be big news. Remember, Pakistan has faced huge floods and consequences of that on their economy, on their social life and fabric. And the Prime Minister tweeted, concern about Pakistan. So in that context, if a pull aside happens, that would be a big news. Apart from that, of course, Prime Minister's already announced engagements, which includes bilaterals with President Putin President Ibrahim Raisi of Iran, and of course the President of Uzbekistan. So these are the only three official engagements that he has apart from the main summit. And that's why I said pull aside with Xi Jinping and pull aside with the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Those are the only two possible big news points that might come out. No bilaterals lined up either with China or Pakistan, Niranjan.
All right, and how do you see things pan out vis-a-vis Pakistan for one, Abhishek? Because, you know, there have been different noises being made. There is anticipation that perhaps there could be an aside, a pull aside. Will that happen? Because at best, of course, they may thank India for their support on the floods. Are we expecting that? Will that be a start of something? Are you expecting that?
Well, obviously, so if a pull aside happens between Shehbaz Sharif and Prime Minister Modi, then obviously that would be the trigger, that would be the icebreaker, the floods in Pakistan and whatever can be done. But Niranjan, you know, if we were talking about a classroom, India did not want to talk to Pakistan. The Chinese want India to talk to Pakistan. India also does not want to talk to China, but the Russians want us to talk to the Chinese. So that's the situation. You know, we don't want to talk to the Chinese till the time Ladakh is all clear. We don't want to talk to Pakistanis till the time they do something about Masood Azhar, which incidentally even the Afghans want now. So I think SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, essentially is Chinese backyard. It began in Shanghai. It was called Shanghai Plus 5, Shanghai 5, and it has evolved into this kind of grouping in Central Asia. Remember, in a nuanced briefing that was done by Foreign Secretary in the morning, he did not take the question directly on whether Prime Minister would meet President Xi Jinping, and then he also said that apart from SCO, India also has Central Asian Summit. So it's not that this is the only platform through which we engage with Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. We have our own platform called the Central Asian Summit, under which we engage with these nation states. So I think the message was clear that we are not very gung-ho about meeting the Chinese president in SCO summit in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. But yes, we have to be there. We have to engage with them. We are a member. In fact, next year India would be the president of SCO and would be hosting these leaders. So it would not have looked nice if we did not go. I think it should end there. So we should not be expecting much coming out of it. A pull aside with Xi Jinping, not much of an icebreaker till the time that Ladakh is all clear, which the Chinese are not doing, particularly in Depsang, Baljang, Demchok. And so far as Pakistan is concerned, I think even a pull aside would be a big move forward, given the fact that direct engagement between the two countries has not happened since the time of Pulwama and before. In fact, from Pathankot onwards, 2017 onwards, no direct engagement has happened between the two sides. And to that extent, even a pull aside between Indian and Pakistani leaders would be very significant, Niranjan.
Thank you for that, Abhishek, for putting that in perspective. Abhishek, tracking the story very closely. Tomorrow is a big day when the Prime Minister is in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. And we are tracking that story closely. The three possible headlines, of course, there is that big meeting with Vladimir Putin. Apart from that, will he meet Xi Jinping? No confirmation yet. Or will he meet or speak to the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif? No indication of that. But even if something happens, not sure we'll get the pictures. Is it, Abhishek? I'm not sure we'll get the pictures, right?
No, we'll get the pictures. We'll get the pictures. If the meetings happen, we'll get the pictures.
All right. On that note, thank you, Abhishek. Getting in some more breaking news now to the story from the national capital. It's